Delighted to be joined right now by Ralph Schoellhammer, political theorist and professor at Webster University in Vienna, to talk about what else, the most important thing that's happening in the next few days. I am, of course, talking about the COP29 talks in Baku in Azerbaijan. Good afternoon to you, Ralph.
Good to see you, Julia. How are you doing?
Very well indeed. Delighted not to be in Baku and at the COP talks for so many different reasons. Now, I know you've attended these COP summits before. Now, these COP talks, we had COP26 famously here in the UK, in Glasgow, in Scotland, and this was all about saving the world. And it's the last chance to save the world from climate change. And every single one of these 29 COP summits has been about the last chance to save the world. What are they claiming they're going to do this time round?
Well, as you know, very often you can judge the quality of a party not just by the people who show up, but also by the people who don't show up. And last year in Dubai, there were about 86,000 attendants. This year, it's not even going to be half. Donald Trump is not showing up. Olaf Scholz is not showing up. Emmanuel Macron is not showing up. The president of Brazil is not showing up. The president of South Africa is not showing up. So it was cancellation after cancellation.
The US president's not turning up. Yeah, but guess who is going?
In defense of Joe Biden, he probably forgot that it takes place. So I will cut him some slack.
But fair. But guess who is going? Because it's a top priority after leaving Armistice Day commemorations in Paris. Our Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, is going to turn up. Of course he is. Because like on everything else, he has got everything completely wrong. Now, there was a time when all the political leaders would turn up and it was all about, even Indian Prime Ministers who basically don't have any interest in this stuff, but they would pay lip service to it. And it was all about, there's a lot of, we saw greenwashing by countries like that, but other countries trying to be leaders of their nations, leaders of the world in green energy, and it's all about saving the planet. I'm guessing that the shine has kind of come off that pontificating on the world stage now.
Well, look at it from this perspective. The whole climate change, like the political side of it, but the climate change as a scientific phenomenon is a different issue. But the political thing was a luxury belief. And this was something we could afford in the West as long as we did economically well. Unfortunately, believing in it also made us pursue policies that made us poorer. And now being poorer has political ramifications. We looked at the elections in the United States. We have upcoming snap elections in Germany. If they, and I'm quoting the last headline from the Telegraph, if they can get all the paper ballots, because apparently Germany is not just running out of energy, they're also running out of paper. So who would have thought? The world's most incompetent government is Germany, driven by its energy agenda. And for whatever reason, Keir Starmer and Ed Miliband want to repeat this in the United Kingdom. Why anybody in Britain would want this is a separate issue. But no, this is reality now. We talked on this on your show before. Like we always said this on the path from prosperity to poverty is going to be riot, or in this case, an upheaval, if you want, at the voting booth. And this is precisely what's going to happen.
Absolutely. And again, as you mentioned Germany, right, just as we saw the Donald Trump being re-elected in the United States, very much sort of saying, look, pull out of Paris Agreement and all the climate nonsense, and drill, baby, drill for the liquid gold that is oil. And of course, America's been doing that all along. And thank God they had, because when we saw the Russian invasion of Ukraine, where did we start getting all our liquefied natural gas from? From America. Thank God they've been doing the fracking and the drilling, even if we weren't doing it. But then we've seen Germany, the powerhouse of Europe, driving the European economy for the last 40, 50 years, collapsing in on itself, unable to actually keep the lights on, industry collapsing, closing down, going abroad, and we are literally saying, yeah, let's do what they did.
No, and you're right. And just as a little add-on to your previous conversation that I saw, one must not forget it will not be the personality of Trump that potentially persuades Putin to make a deal. It's much more his energy policies, because Putin knows if he's capable of doing it, we have to wait and see. But if he unleashes U.S. energy, that will drive down prices. And nothing is going to hurt Putin more than low prices for energy on the global markets. So if he sees that coming, if he sees the writing on the wall and he knows that his war machine might run out of money, not because of sanctions, but simply because the U.S. are driving down prices, he might be much more willing to come to the table. Again, Putin is a criminal, but he's also a realist. And I think if he sees that he can no longer conduct the war as he thought he could under a Biden Brussels, let's call it a Biden EU administration, if you want to use this kind of collective term, then of course I think he would be willing to make some kind of a deal. And we hope it's going to be the best possible for Ukraine. But unfortunately, sacrifices potential will have to be made, I'm afraid.
Indeed. I mean, cheap, reliable and secure energy is basically the cornerstone of any thriving economy. And indeed, we now know thriving democracy as well, because it's absolutely crucial for people to feel the benefits of that. I did find it fascinating that part of the debate at this COP summit, not that anyone's really there to debate it, is that how much money, how many trillions of dollars every year should be given to third world countries and to help them on the climate change. And the mind-blowing madness of a lot of rich countries, only rich because they've used fossil fuels to industrialise, to create wealth for their nations and their people, to then tell poorer countries, we need to pay you a load of money to not industrialise, to not have cheap fossil fuel energy, to keep poor. I mean, the madness of that and the immorality of that absolutely blows my mind.
No, it's true. And the promise that is always made is that they can leapfrog, right? The idea is, oh, don't worry, like Africa doesn't need coal and gas because they will leapfrog towards wind and solar. But if you look at what's going on in the UK, and I'm very worried about this, I recently saw that you were celebrating in your country the shutting down of the last coal power plant. Now, I understand I have my issues with coal as well, but if you want to be ahead in the artificial intelligence game, you need to have a competitive advantage in electricity production. And that means that every single power plant has a role to play. And yes, that will potentially involve coal. I know it's not my
certainly as a backup. And I'd like to point out that Britain's wind generation is set to plummet virtually zero this week, as Ed Miliband, our Energy Secretary, presses ahead with plans to increase our reliance on renewable energy. We've seen 0 hours of sunshine across most of the UK so far this month, and the first part of this week will have such light winds fitting even more lows, and basically we're having to import our energy from abroad. I mean, this is untenable in a first world country that wants to be wealthy.
No, it's untenable, and we have the numbers. I know I don't have to go into too many of the details, but the point is very simple, that it's not just about replacing existing energy sources because demand for energy is going up. Yeah. So we need to keep pace with increasing demand. And if you don't do this, you run into trouble. And we see this in continental Europe. I mean, just to remind all your viewers, we have lost the connection to pretty much all future major industries. We lost heavy industry. We're going to lose the battle for AI. We lose the battle for advanced technologies. We lose the battle for semiconductors, because without reliable energy, you can't do any of those things. And I can only implore the British, don't follow us down this rabbit hole. I'm sure that we have elections in Germany next year. They will at some point have to make a course correction under a lot of pain. So spare yourself all the pain and correct the course quicker than we did.
Yeah, absolutely. They're not listening. There's no way that Keir Starmer or Ed Miliband are listening, because they're too busy flying to Azerbaijan to go and just sort of hold court and be morally superior while they're impoverishing our nation and making us less secure. It is madness, but I'm afraid I think we're going to have to hit ground zero. But it's going to have to get very, very, very bad before they actually realise that net zero ain't going to work. Ralph Schoellhammer, always great to have you on, talking sense on all these things. Philip Ingram, I mean, makes a very good point. The AI point is very, very crucial, isn't it? That people don't realise here. AI involves the hugest amount of energy off the scale of what most other industries are using. You need to have cheaper, affordable, reliable energy, which we don't have.
Yeah, well, it's AI, and it's the storage that's needed for all of the data that we've got out there and everything else. And you know, we're going to make no difference as a nation. So unless you can get the international collective community to reduce their energy needs... To
all be poorer. To all be poorer. That's what you're asking.
Well, to all be poorer, but to work together, then there's no point in doing it.
I'd like to say once again, fossil fuels are the reason why we're able to actually deliver the Industrial Revolution, not just to Britain, but to the world. And once again, I say to the world, you are welcome.